and I really appreciate you guys dedicating your time to speak for all of us. Okay, and now I'm going to hand it over to Miss Sarah Polinski.
Hey, everybody in the club. How you doing? Where my vocalists at? Where they at? Give me some riffs. Oh, no, just kidding. Ooh, still too early, Lord. Warm up, number one. First thing, warm up. Don't be like me, didn't warm up today. Hello, everyone. I have only spent 6 months in the military, so I was thinking about what I wanted to say, and I'm a very passionate, very enthusiastic, kind of a hot mess of a person. And I was like, I have some things I need to say to these people. And so I thought it'd be fun to kind of bring you all back in time. So 5 years ago, literally on April 26th in 2015. So imagine where you guys were 5 years ago. This is where little Sarah Poe was at. I was a junior at Mansfield University in Pennsylvania, and I was music ed and vocal performance. So I had no time for anything social. It was just studying and practicing. You guys know where that's at. But this day was special because that day in 2015 was the day of the student concerto competition. And I had sung Una Voce Poco Fa from the Barber of Seville with the University Orchestra. And what the audience didn't know is that the only reason I had even auditioned was because I had an incredible female vocal teacher, Dr. Alyssa Rose, who inspired me to go for it. And I am talking a fierce woman. She is unbelievably nuanced as a vocalist and just a tour de force for vocal pedagogy. And Dr. Rose continued the next semester to suggest I start taking my performance to the next level and audition for some summer opportunities. So I just kept pulling myself down and telling myself I wasn't ready and I wasn't good enough, but Dr. Rose knew that I had it in me. So literally 2 days before the recordings were due, I made an audition tape for a certain program that I'll tell you about later. So the lesson I learned 5 years ago, trust your mentors. They are incredible professionals with decades of performing experience and education. They know what they're talking about. Trust me. Let them guide you. Dr. Rose helped me believe in myself. She worked my voice in lessons and held me to just such a high standard. And she never gave up on my potential, and she still hasn't. More about that later. So now we're going to fast forward another year, and you cannot make this up. I swear, this is the weirdest timing ever. April 25th, 2016, I was in this gorgeous royal blue gown, getting ready for, drum roll, my senior recital. So if anyone has done a recital, especially like, you gotta have your hair right. I don't care what instrument you are playing, but as a vocalist, you're a diva. And like, you gotta get ready, you gotta feel gorgeous. And I was so nervous the day of my senior recital, but it was different because I was nervous mostly because of the program I put together. So it wasn't your typical soprano recital. I mean, I had Bach, I had Schubert, Gounod, Kurt Weill, and then I started sneaking in contemporary musical theater, and then jazz, and then pop. And people were like, Lord! But I wanted to sing pieces in genres that spoke to me. And so often as a vocalist, people will tell you to choose, right? So many people mention this, like, who are you? Are you an opera singer or a musical theater singer? And like, what's your specialty, like jazz or pop? And my senior recital was my opportunity to show my friends and my colleagues that I just have a passion for so many different genres of music, and that's okay. And this is one of the reasons that I decided to transfer to Mansfield University, because my first university I attended was very classically oriented. And you need those standards at the beginning. Like that's how your voice, that's how you know your voice, is that classical training. And I continued that at Mansfield. But even as a freshman, I knew I wanted to explore some other genres. And there I was 4 years ago singing Meghan Trainor's All About That Bass to end that senior recital. Yes, Lord. And so lessons that I learned 4 years ago, make sure the music speaks to you. Now, why did I end my vocal recital with All About That Bass? Let me tell you. I invited 3 professors, all with doctorates, to perform with me. And it was to show that even doctors can jam to a jazzy version of a pop song. And whether you're choosing audition repertoire or deciding what music to practice in your lessons, make sure the music speaks to you and challenge yourself to explore something new. Like Sarah said, like, you find the thing that you're really good at, but you can also try something new and see if you can explore that. So now in our timeline, we are in April of 2017. That's 3 years ago. Where were you guys 3 years ago? Isn't it crazy? So remember that audition tape that I sent in last minute in 2015? Oh yeah, I get some nods. Okay, we here. I received an offer to perform with the College Light Opera Company on Cape Cod, Massachusetts for the summer of 2016. And I got in, so I performed Belle and Beauty and the Beast. We had some more legit musical theater, Guys and Dolls with Sarah Brown. And I literally learned and performed in 9 shows in 3 months. The College Light Opera Company is incredible, and I know some of our students are instrumentalists. You know, started out with the saxophone. We got that elementary school band, then marching band, then high school band, then jazz band, concert band. I'm an instrumentalist too, so it was hard for me to be singing on the stage when like all the pit musicians were my age, and I just wanted to like be their friends. And so there's an opportunity to be an instrumentalist as well in College Light Opera Company. So really, really recommend that. So after my summer with College Light Opera, I finished student teaching because I was a music ed major as well. And I graduated and moved to New York City, just like Sarah. And it was crazy. Why did I do that? I'm like such a smart person. And there was just something like drawing me to this city. And I was like, I have no money. I am broke. I got a dream and a lot of student loans. But I went up anyway. And I had been working throughout college. And so I saved like just as much as possible to make this happen. And this was like 2 months worth of rent. I was like, okay, we're going for it. And that meant, little did I know, that meant getting up at 4 a.m., riding the subway because I couldn't afford to live in Manhattan, living with like 1 million people in an apartment, standing in line for an open call audition, and then going to my survival job in the afternoon and evening. So I spent these months auditioning and working all these survival jobs. I worked at a call center for the Brooklyn Academy of Music. I had free concerts because I was working at BAM. So I would do my job at night, and then like on the weekend, if there weren't any auditions, I'd go see like the ballet. Like they'd bring these amazing, like very avant-garde companies in at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. So I got to be in the audience and just be completely immersed in art for free because I worked for that company. And then I did audio transcriptions online, like had those little headphones, and was like, people had their like science meetings and business meetings, and here I am as like a professional singer typing them and uploading them. But that was a gig. You have to take those kind of jobs. And my first performance gig in New York City was for a tiny little children's theater on Staten Island. And for anyone who's been to New York, you know that means I gotta take the subway from Brooklyn, and then I gotta take the Staten Island ferry. It was nuts, and I am not a morning person. I need like a solid hour before I see other people. And it was exhausting. It was not glamorous. It was hard work. And that was just this tiny little children's theater who gave me a chance. And it's so funny. I looked back through my calendar to select this date. So April 26th in 2017, I had a morning show in Staten Island. And then I remember it was either the day before or on the 26th, I received an email that would just completely change my whole life. And this email was a callback for Phoebe in the national tour of A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. So it's a contemporary musical theater, but like very operetta, which is like my land, and I love that. But I was so stressed out. Like I had this cheap headshot that like I had photoshopped, and it was terrible, and I didn't have a curling iron, so I like went to bed with like 2 buns on my head. Girls, you know what I'm talking about. And then it like flows down in the morning. I didn't have anything, and it just totally stressed me out. I like put myself in this space that was like, you have to be perfect, and you have to be what the casting directors want. And I like totally, it's so funny that I'm telling you this because so many of my very close friends do not know this because I haven't talked about it a very long time. But I froze in that callback. I had memorized everything and I froze and I didn't get it. And so the lessons that I learned from 3 years ago, stop comparing yourself to others. I wish I could go back and tell Sarah, who was one of 3 women left for that lead role in Gentleman's Guide, you are enough. You are so enough. I was so worried about being what the casting directors wanted me to be that I forgot to show up and be me. And that has carried with me for a very long time. And I wish that for you. Just don't let anyone define you and put you in a box. Another lesson I learned is record audition tapes during or right after your senior year. Collaborate with the pianists available to you, with professors. Get it done. Getting comfortable being in front of a camera, especially now with what the virtual climate that we're in. Like, don't be, if you're a perfectionist like me who takes like 25 million takes, you have to get comfortable in front of the camera, and you don't have to record a million times. Choose from the ones that you have and take the best one. Another lesson is you have to set yourself up financially. So many of the presenters have talked about this. You need survival jobs. And sometimes they're going to be musically oriented, and sometimes they're going to be part of a paid focus group on Facebook research in Manhattan. That's a thing. And you have to let go of your pride. You need to pay the bills. You have to pay the bills so you can keep getting those callbacks for national tours. That's just a fact. So now it's April 26, 2018. 2 years ago, where were you? And by this time, I finished working the children's theater show, and I had gone to so many auditions, and I only received 1 offer for the summer, 1. And it was a professional opera company called Ohio Light Opera. It's in Worcester, Ohio. It's very small, very niche. And it was my 2nd year setting in audition tapes. I got waitlisted the first year. And so this year they offered me a young artist contract for the summer of 2017. And so that past year I met some incredible people at Ohio Light Opera, but I had no other contracts lined up. So I went back to my hometown. I accepted a long-term music position, going back to those teaching roots, because I love the kiddos. Pre-K through 6 is my jam. And it had been so long, it had been months since I had been in the classroom. And but there was something in my gut that was just, I don't know, New York has that magnetic like pull. And for some reason, I was like, I could either stay and teach these little babies for like decades, or I need to go back to New York. There's something that's like, I need to go back to New York. And so I chose one day, I went to New York. I drove in for 1 audition. I couch surfed with some friends, and I ended up getting a dance call and a final callback. So I had to like stay the night on my friend's couch twice because I hadn't planned anything. The callbacks are it's so fast paced. You can't plan anything, and everything was happening so fast. But because I was in the city for that audition, the friend I reconnected with she's been a stage manager for, I think now over 15 national tours. And from Mary Poppins to Newsies, this woman is fire. She's amazing. And her name is Patty Grab. And she changed my life. And she invited me to live at her place for a bit and be the production assistant. Nothing musically oriented, literally getting people coffee, being organized, showing up on time, helping take care of the drama. That's what being a production assistant is. And it wasn't musical, but it was part of the national tour of Elf, the musical. So that took me from New York to Oklahoma, and I wasn't singing at all, but I was immersed in this culture of the backstage, the behind the scenes, the props. There are like 500 props in Up the Musical, by the way, if you ever see it. And I labeled that box because I'm a perfectionist. Looks gorgeous. I hope they're still using it. But it's all because I took that one random audition in New York City, and that audition I won, and I ended up working for Christmas Town in Williamsburg, Virginia at Busch Gardens. Yes, I'm talking children's theater, opera company, theme park. What? Like, I'm a classically trained musician, and I'm all over the place, right? So lessons I learned 2 years ago. Trust your gut. If you take on a job and realize there's something pulling you somewhere else, listen to it, and you have to be realistic. I knew I couldn't afford to live in New York City, so I just drove for that one audition, and that has totally changed my entire career. So now it's April 26th, 2019. Where were you a year ago? Crazy to think about. I was in Germany. So I hear everybody like, what? Why is she in Germany? So how did you go from Virginia to Hamburg? So 2018 was an insane year. And after Busch Gardens, after the theme park gig, I saved up for a couple months of rent and went back to the city. I did not learn my lesson. No. I reconnected with my survival jobs. I was back at Brooklyn Academy of Music. And I told myself, I need to give everything I've got in these 2 months, and then I'll just teach. Like, that's something that I love. I'm happy to teach. It's a passion of mine. That's why I majored in it. But I just want to try one more time. And so that meant getting up at 4 a.m., riding the subway, standing in line, the works. It was rigorous and it was exhausting. And I realized it wasn't sustainable. So I started researching more online options. So it wasn't as much in-person, crazy open call, standing in line. So I found an audition notice for an 80s themed cruise ship, right? Bear with me, hang on. 80s themed cruise ship. I'm not a Cyndi Lauper, but I submitted that, okay? Just on a whim, and I got an audition slot. So it was a designated time where I got to sing 16 bars of music, and I didn't have to get up at 4 a.m. So this was magical. And I ended up getting a call back for that cruise ship, and I had prepared the wrong piece. I had prepared the male singing selection. I cranked that gospel out like it was my life. And the casting director, I got done, and I hadn't known until after I had sung. So I was like, no. And he was like, that's not the right piece. And then he just started erupting in laughter. And I was like mortified. Like, I had gone to bed with my buns. I had did everything right. Like, I thought it was right. And needless to say, I did not embark on an 80s pop cruise ship. But then 2 weeks later, I did another online submission with the same casting director, and I got a slot. And I'm telling you, for any soprano or vocalist that you'll ever meet, as a petite soprano with brown hair and brown eyes and a headshot that I did not spend $300 on, I rarely heard responses from online submissions. It is so competitive. And I thought, my goodness, if I didn't do that random 80s pop audition and totally tank it, that director might not have remembered me. Like, he might have just gone past my name. And so I went in for this next audition, sang some Jessie J, sang some Demi Lovato, getting that pop on, and I received a dance call back. And I went in for this dance call and then was asked to prepare the final callback packet. And luckily, that final callback for this cruise ship, not an 80s pop one, this cruise ship had the song from Secret Garden. And on the day of that callback, I made a decision. I was going to opt for the high note at the end. It was not warranted. It's not a thing. But I was like, you know what? I'm feeling it. I'm not gonna let fear get in the way like it did for that Gentleman's Guide callback. I'm gonna go for it, and we're gonna see what's going to happen. I wanted to flex a little bit of that classical skill in me. I was like, okay, I'm going to opt out. You know, somebody would have, they'd like that. Let's see. And the music director at that audition just stopped after I got done. And he was like, was that the Puccini version? And I was hired on the spot. And what that meant was I had to completely pack up my life in 3 weeks, move to Germany, and start my first cruise ship contract with a German company called AIDA Cruises. So the lesson I learned last year, 1 year ago, you cannot make plans as a professional musician. I'm sorry. At least as a vocalist, this has been my experience. And you must take outrageous auditions. You have to go for the 80s pop ship. Like, you never know. Say yes to things, just like Sarah said. Say yes to things and figure it out. And things are going to change so rapidly, and you have to be okay with not being okay. And I say this because during that first cruise ship contract, I fell really ill with pneumonia, and we were in northern Europe and the Baltic Sea, and the next spot was Greenland and Iceland, and going back and forth, and I had to be flown from Greenland to Reykjavik, Iceland, and then home to New York City. I was medically discharged from the ship, and I spent 3 months recovering, and my breathing changed. And as an instrumentalist or vocalist or a musician, you got these lungs and they know what to do. And when you have an infection like that, when it's respiratory, it changes everything. It changes everything. And so I had to spend those months in recovery, and I reached out to Dr. Rose, my teacher, and my colleagues, and I said, help me with breathing exercises, help me with vocalises. Like, I need to get back into shape. And the first audition that was after this pneumonia was for the U.S. Army Field Band. And I had another contract. Luckily, this cruise ship had invited me for a second contract. So I had time to recuperate and then go back on the ship for a new contract. And I had to do all the Army requirements. So in order to be in a military band, you have to, at least for the Army, you have to pass all the Army requirements, the testing, the medical, the works. And the timing was so much so that I didn't complete it in the US. I had to go to Germany and do these rehearsals, and I was like flying to the Army base in Kaiserslautern, Germany to like finish up like these Army requirements. And so you fast forward a year, April 26th, 2020, hey, today. Well, not today. Yesterday. And sorry, my brain. I was in France a few months ago, and I was on that second cruise ship contract. And my husband was with me. He was the pianist for me at the time, and I completed all the Army requirements. I flew from Germany to Baltimore to finish out this audition process, and I found out that I had gotten this soprano spot in the U.S. Army Field Band. And so fast forward to today, COVID-19 has completely revamped the way that our Army Field Band is presenting concerts. I don't know if you guys know, but we have a live stream concert every day. And what we usually do is we go out and we perform on the road in-person concerts for everyone in across the United States. And now we have these daily live stream concerts where we're sharing music from like flute and harp. We had a percussion recital. We had pipe and drum, and then we have Broadway tunes and all this crazy expansive selection of music. And as you remember, I am a lover of multiple genres. And so this has been an incredible opportunity to share some jazz, to share some pop. And it's been really unique in this very tough time to still be able to share virtually. And so I have to tell you and share with you that on April 26th, today, 2020, I got an email from Dr. Rose, my teacher, who we all started with. My number one thing was trust your mentors 5 years ago. And she sent me an email today, which I was like, oh, this woman is amazing. I got to put this in. She was like, I'm listening to your live streams and your voice sounds great and all this stuff. And it's just a reminder that like one person can get you through so much, especially when it's a fierce lady musician. And so the lessons that I've learned from this year so far is just fight for your goals. Do not give up. Love incredibly fiercely, especially the other musicians in your life, because we're all in this together. So I'm so happy to be a part of this amazing presentations. The women here are so fierce and awesome. And I love all the students watching and people commenting and questioning. This is really good stuff. And we're all here for you and we're in this together. So let me know if you have any questions, but if not, this has been super cool.
I have a question.
Yeah, hey.
So this is going to be specific, but
Sure.
thank you so much. I am a huge lover of musical theater. Who knows, might end up in New York someday. So as someone who's recently-ish done their senior recital, I had mine last May, and honestly, leading up to my recital was like the peak of my performance. Like I was practicing every day, hours. It was great. Honestly, since then, it's just been downhill. And I keep telling myself, like, this is what I need to do. Like, I need to brush up on sight reading. I'm a pianist, so like, I know that there's all these skills I need for theater, but how would you say to like refine that motivation? Because I have nothing to practice. So I can't, like, I'm just sitting here.
Yes. This is an excellent. Is that Jenny?
Yes.
Okay. Jenny. So
I think your microphone is a little.
What?
Your microphone got a little.
Yep. Can you hear me now? No.
We can hear you, but it's like really warped.
Oh. I'm gonna say it and give me a thumbs up if you can still hear me, or if you can't hear me, it's still working. Oh no! Oh, okay. I don't even know.
Maybe leave and come back in really quickly.
Or you could also use chat.
All right, I'm gonna chat it up. So much to say. Can you still hear me? Kind of.
I can understand you.
Find a friend that you have who is also a vocalist or a pianist, right? So I have a friend, I call her probably once or twice a month, and I say, hey, Deanna, she's going to be a she's incredible. I'm like, Deanna, I need some inspiration. I'm totally sad. I need you in my life. Give me songs that you want to hear. So find someone who has, find someone who knows your voice. It could be a teacher and them say, what do you want to hear me sing? Because sometimes we don't have the inspiration, sometimes we feel bogged down. And if someone else knows your voice, they can say, oh, you're on a song. We have music is very lately. Give me your Robert's kind of thing. So find a friend, it could be a teacher, and because you know those happen, especially during COVID-19. It's incredibly depressing. Find someone to give you just one title or one assignment, and they can hold you accountable, right? So find someone who knows your voice. Say, hey, give me like one or two songs I want to hear you sing, and then work on them. But you have to follow through. You have to send it to them. And then they gotta have some homework, and they gotta send you some responses back to give you some kind of like, oh, this was great, or what can you work on? And that's something I would suggest, because you have to hold yourself accountable. You don't have to just all of a sudden create everything and be amazing. Like, you can do these things very small, one song at a time, even if it's just one song, like 2 weeks, it's okay. have someone listen to you, and I think that's something that can be really beneficial and help you get inspired and creativity back.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all so much for speaking and being here. I appreciate all of you guys for showing up so much. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you guys. If you want to hang around a little bit and just chat, do whatever, it's all good. I'm going to stop the recording and then I'm going to figure out how to put it on YouTube so everyone else can see it too.